Well, Donald Trump found some time in between sleeping at his criminal trial in Manhattan to do a couple of rallies in Waukesha, Wisconsin and Freeland, Michigan. And so I'll bounce back between clips from either of those speeches in this segment. Not good stuff, but we'll quickly go through it. And I'll get to him getting very distracted by a plane and by a train and an automobile, by a plane and then by his teleprompter. He got very upset with his teleprompter. But before that even, I want to start with a little pre-coverage that the network we get these clips from, Right Side Broadcasting, their coverage before Trump came out to speak in Michigan. And just notice, pick up on, and observe the cringe factor of just how pro-Trump propagandist these individuals are.
I paid $9.50 a gallon for gas. So, like going back to what I said earlier, everything this man has said has come true.
What did I just hear? Sorry, this isn't even the part I was talking about, but I missed that initially. $9.50 for gas? Where the heck are you buying your gas?
All right, the doors are open, but we're still waiting on the president to exit Trump Force One. Yeah, everything he says is true, and it's almost like he's on the end. He knows about these people. He knows who's good. He knows who's bad. He knows who's a rhino. He knows who's there to mean who means business.
He knows who's good. He knows who's bad. He makes a list and he checks it twice. And then he makes sure to give the rhinos coal. So he knows, he just knows. Trump knows, doesn't he? And he's right about everything. Yikes, imagine living in that world. Okay, so first moment where he gets very distracted by a plane and says that he thought it was China.
And that's what you need, especially with the car industry and all of the other things. I thought that was China. That was a loud plane. That was an old one. Those old ones are a little loud.
Yeah, do you remember whenever Joe Biden in his White House Correspondents' Dinner said that age is an issue in this election? Biden's a grown adult and he's running against a 6-year-old. There we go. That's a 6-year-old's reaction. Mama, I thought that was China. That's loud. And then here he's very upset by his teleprompter and corrects it.
These teleprompters are just gonzo, folks. They're gonzo. I hate them.
They are gonzo, which is interesting, and people have pointed this out, but he used to say in such a judgmental way that it was so horrible that Obama and Biden and others have to rely on a teleprompter. I don't need a teleprompter, but then the speech falls apart when he doesn't have his. And by the way, the fact that he can go off of his teleprompter, as many people can, usually doesn't end well for him. And normally he ends up having some sort of a glitch, or he says something that gets him into hot water, or whatever it might be. Speaking of glitches, here is a couple examples of these two speeches' glitches.
Work out too well. $1.2 trillion for their fake infrastructure. He work out.
Every time, instead of just backing up and pulling forward to make sure you can say the word correctly, he just has to divert. And something else. That's what I was thinking of my next thought. That's why I said, and that reminds me every time of our favorite moment.
In Russia, will repeat.
Yep. And you also have this.
Our country must be saved. Our country is in big, very dangerous trouble. Our country.
Again, bailing on the word altogether. Big, dangerous trouble. Just big. Sure, do that. That's what normal people do. Then we get on to other moments from this Michigan speech. Here, he's fearmongering about how they're coming for your stoves, they're coming for your dishwashers.
Remember this, they also want to take your gas stoves. They want to give you very little water in your dishwashers and your washing machines. You know, they want washing machines with very little water. And I'm talking about in states like your state, you don't have a water problem. You do have a water problem. You have too much water.
Water. Now, this one is something that we've now talked about so many times because they just can't get over it. No one's coming from your gas stove. No one's coming for your refrigerator or your washing machine. What they're fear-mongering about has to do with just extra regulations that either are being considered or were implemented. And the outcome for consumers is just that we would save a bunch of money because the Biden administration would impose onto companies extra steps they have to take to make sure that things are either safer or more efficient. And we've talked about this, I forget, with water heaters, I think it was, when we talked about Marsha Blackburn pushing the idea that water heaters are going to be taken. And then you look into the actual outcome of these regulations, and it's just saving consumers money. It's not going to impact your experience using the product. And then in the case of gas stoves, there are huge concerns around the emissions, not just for the planet, but also into your home, causing you health problems. So then, yes, we want our government to make sure companies are making safer appliances, but it's not taking your gas stove. It's just one of these silly examples of, if we weren't in this weird world where everything gets politicized, we just sort of be like, yeah, that's sort of a normal thing the government will do. Put in extra regulations to protect our health and, of course, the planet, and make more efficient for us our appliances without us really having to worry about it. They'll just deal with that with the companies, and somehow it gets politicized. Here's Trump ranting. This happens during his speeches. If he's talking about, some anti-trans thing, or if he's saying some insult to someone, okay, then the crowd's super hyped. But then he starts ranting about his own legal troubles, and the crowd is just sort of silent, doesn't know what to do. And so here he's just ranting about E. Jean Carroll, and you don't hear much from the crowd.
And he found me guilty before the case even started. He said, he's guilty. And the guy doesn't even, the other day, he didn't know what cash was. We said, we're going to put up all cash. And he didn't know what that meant. And this is the guy that's ruling on me in New York. And then we have another one in New York who gave someone $91 million because they said I defamed her. Because I said her story isn't true, I defamed her. $91 million. $91 million.
Yeah, we heard you.
Oh, so anyway, hopefully the appeal process works, because if it doesn't, you just don't have a country. $91 million.
So they're just sort of chilling, listening to him while he's ranting, saying $91 million about 35 times. And the reason why your argument doesn't work is because you were found to have done the thing that she accused you of. So that's an important little thing that you forgot to mention, was that before the defamation ruling that Trump's referring to, it was found that he's liable for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll. And thus the defamation becomes a much stronger case. Then here's this profound moment.
Man and woman 4 years ago was not forgotten.
Man and woman 4 years ago was not forgotten. Sure. Whatever the heck that means, he then promises to make our elections, what, safe, secure? Maybe, but beautiful too.
I will secure our elections and make them real, beautiful, safe elections.
He loves that word beautiful. I don't know if he knows what the word beautiful means, because he described Gettysburg as beautiful and wants to make our elections beautiful. Just a strange term to use in both of those cases. And maybe he's confused about the meaning. Now, of course, when he says he's going to make our elections safe, secure, beautiful, etc., what he means is, I'll be the one who can. The only way elections are fair now in MAGA's mind is that Trump is the one who wins. And so that's what he's promising to make happen. MAGA will never lose an election, and thus finally we'll have safe and secure elections. Because in reality, we already have safe and secure elections, unless Trump has something to say about it. And that's why he was defeated, because the American people sided against him. And then here's him retelling a story that he has told before and justifiably caused a lot of backlash, which is him saying that the United States wouldn't follow through on our dedication to NATO if he feels like one of the countries who would potentially be invaded isn't paying enough.
Yes, the right way. I remember during a meeting, one of the presidents of one of the European countries stood up, and it was a closed-door meeting. He said, may I ask you a question, Mr. President? Yes. if we don't pay, we're not paid up, and we're attacked by Russia, will you defend us? I said, you mean you're delinquent? You haven't paid? That's right. No, I will not defend you. The next.
So, of course, I've said it before, there are guidelines that members of NATO are supposed to contribute to their defense, and it's a percentage of GDP of each country, but there's not a requirement. And so it would just be a clear and overt violation of the treaty for us to say, we'll pick and choose based on how much we feel like people are investing if we follow through on our commitment to this organization, which the second we start doing that and we don't obligate ourselves to act in ways that we've agreed to based on treaties that we've signed, things fall apart very, very quickly. And then in this next moment, Trump once again tries to hypnotize us into believing that everyone wanted Roe v. Wade overturned.
Everybody wanted this to be done. Every legal scholar wanted this to be done. Most Democrats wanted it. Liberals wanted it. This was a while ago. Then they changed their mind. They viewed it as a political deal.
It's just not true. The majority of Americans were good with Roe v. Wade being the law of the land, and we're not hoping for it to be overturned. But again, we see this with Trump a lot, where he just tries to repeat something as many times as possible because maybe eventually he'll convince you that it's the case, or you'll think to yourself, surely no one would say something that many times if it were just completely untrue. And that's his little hypnotism that he tries to do. You're okay with Roe v. Wade being overturned. You're okay with Roe v. Wade being overturned. You hated Roe v. Wade. You hated Roe v. Wade. And it's not working, Don. It's not working.
We also have to run our country. It's nice to be nice. It's nice to be good. We got to run our country. Our country's in trouble. Our country might not survive. I'll tell you what, if we don't win this election, I don't think our country's going to survive. I will say it. And I've never said that publicly, I don't think. But I felt.
He's never said that publicly. He doesn't think.
And if we don't win this next election coming up, I'll tell you what, I think our country is perhaps finished.
Yeah, and we've heard him say this many, many times. The country's going to be over if Trump doesn't win. And as I've said before, it's interesting because that's baseless fear-mongering. Biden's currently in charge and the country's not anywhere close to being finished, to use his term. But also, if you're going to make an argument about one of the sides being in favor of something that you could classify as ending the country, the only plausible argument you can make is that the attack on democracy by Trump and his movement would be the closest to that classification. If you believe America to be in part defined by the democracy it's built on, then you can make that argument that actually that would be the finishing of the country. At least the United States wouldn't be what we know it to be in a potential second Trump term. I'll leave you there. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.